Thank you. So that's, I'm living with regret at this moment as a result of your kind introduction. The regret is that my wife wasn't here to hear me described as sensitive and alert. I hope that's she'll see the film. Thank you for the invitation, and it was neither my sensitivity or my alertness. It was really a heartfelt belief that this is a very important discussion, a very important dialogue to have, and I try to meet with folks who aren't directly involved in corrections, but whose lives may intersect with the criminal justice system from time to time as often as I can, because it's a big, powerful system, and I don't think it's really all that well understood by a lot of people. So it's really, it comes from that place that I appreciate the invitation, and it was on my perpetual to-do list to get back in touch with you. So, and I also want to thank you and Marguerite for the hospitality this evening, and Cheryl for the excellent job you did. And I work with and have worked with a number of organizations, large and small, in this country and other places to be a speaker. And I don't think anybody has ever done as good a job as being in touch and organizing and spreading the word and making it known that this event was happening. I get phone calls in the wee hours of the morning from media people out here in BC because they heard from you. So it's anyway, well done. And I think it's a tribute to that there's so many folks in the room. So mental health and corrections. It's been a really, really long day. I have to tell you that right off the bat. It's been a really long day, and there's been some emotionally challenging parts of this day, and so some of that may come out in the course of the presentation. So what I'm going to do to start with, okay, there we go. What I'm going to do to start with is I'd like to give you a very quick sense of the Office of the Correctional Investigator, tell you a little bit about what that is, then very quickly run through the rest of those bullet points on the slide. It's easy for me to talk to professionals and colleagues. I know how to do that. I know how to talk to the people that I have to do business with every day. What I am finding when I have discussions like the one we're going to have tonight is that I am the least informed person in the room. The lived experience is powerful and educative. And while it's true that they say that 1 in 5 Canadians will have a direct experience in dealing with a mental health issue, and there's not a family that isn't touched. What I find is that when I'm in a room, such as a room like this tonight, that I'm not going to be the source. I hope you don't have tough questions, because I'm not going to be the source for good answers. But I will try to give you a little bit of what I've discovered along the way. So, the Office of the Correctional Investigator. That's the standard slide. The Office of the Correctional Investigator. The Office of the Correctional Investigator came about because there was a bloody riot at Kingston Penitentiary in 1971, I think it was. And in that riot, during that riot, there was mass destruction of the old Kingston Pen. There was loss of life. One group of inmates sought out and tortured and eventually killed 2 other inmates. Correctional staff were held hostage. Some of them were also beaten. In the aftermath of all of that violence and all that tragedy, the prison was a shambles, and many of the offenders who had been housed in that prison and those who had taken part in the riot were moved to the newly built but not yet opened Millhaven Penitentiary, another maximum security penitentiary in Ontario. They were taken by bus down to Millhaven, and many of the staff were also reassigned on a temporary basis. Many of the staff that had lived through the riot at Kingston were reassigned to Millhaven. And the day that the offenders were taken by bus to Millhaven Penitentiary, the staff lined themselves up in 2 columns, armed with clubs. And when the buses opened up their doors to let the inmates into the yard to go into their new quarters at Millhaven Penitentiary, they had to run the gauntlet and they were beaten by the guards. It was an act of retaliation, an act of frustration. It was an act of brutality. So not only we're now dealing with the riot and the destruction and the violence and the death at Kingston Penitentiary, we're now also dealing with the way the Correctional Service responded to that at Millhaven. And that led to a commission of inquiry, which is a standard Canadian response to a crisis. And commission of inquiry, actually if there's any humor, and there's very little in any of this story, it's the smile that comes to my face when I recall the name of the man who chaired the commission of inquiry, because if you're going to do a commission of inquiry on corrections, this should be your name. His name is Swackhammer. And it's the Swackhammer Report. And I love that. And I love saying Swackhammer. So Swackhammer wrote his report, and one of the things that he concluded was that it was the lack of resolution of legitimate complaints and grievances around the conditions of confinement that led to the riot.